Insurance policies have something built into them called ordinance and law coverage. Sometimes it's called building code coverage or building upgrade coverage or code upgrade coverage. It's all basically the same thing. Ordinance and law coverage, O&L, typically pays for the increased cost incurred by the policyholder for adhering to a ordinance or a law that their municipality enforces. So the key term in what I just said is the word enforce. The policies usually say that they will pay for any ordinance and law that is enforced in that area that is an increased cost over what you would normally do for the replacement. So if you would normally do this and it's not an increased cost, it's not part of this coverage, it's completely separate. Don't let them say that you have to have ordinance and law coverage if it's a normal part of doing the replacement of whatever is damaged in your policy. That's just bull. But let's get back to enforcement. If the policy says they will pay for the increased cost due to an enforcement, and then they say that it has to be enforced and you have to prove that it's enforced, fine. There are plenty of ways to do that. Enforcement is a very broad term. It basically means that there is a looming threat that you could be punished for not doing something that they require you to do. There is language in every municipality's regulations, their code of ordinances, that stipulates which building codes they've adopted. And they have building officials a lot of times written in and what their job description is, and it is to enforce the adopted codes. The language in the first chapter of most of these code books actually says enforcement is the job of the building official. They define it in the books themselves. These books are so thick, it would be impossible for a building official to have to write out everything that they're going to enforce on a specific building every single time there is any kind of repair, alteration, or construction done on a building. It would take a full-time position for one person for every address. That's why they don't do that. That's why they publish a book or 15 this thick. That is the letter. That says this is what is required. You as a contractor have to abide by that language or you can get in trouble for it. I'm with Derek Klein. I'm here with Derek Thompson, with Derek. How's your last name?
Thomas. Thomas.
I'm on this mod bit roof with Derek from Major League Roofing, and he was telling me about a different claim of his involving enforcement of a code in order to gain coverages. Tell me what's going on.
Yeah, the insurance companies, to get our code upgrades or our code required items, wanted me to prove that each individual property is covered by local code enforcement.
So were they asking you to get a letter specific to that property?
Yeah, specific to each property. They wanted a letter from the city, town, state, whatever I could get, showing that that particular property fell within code requirements.
Did they happen to tell you why they needed that?
No, actually.
I'll tell you why. It's bullshit. If you don't have to pull a permit, but you still have to install drip edge, does that mean that the drip edge isn't enforced because you didn't have to pull a permit? No, it doesn't mean that at all. In fact, for most jurisdictions in their regulations, they'll actually use the terminology, we enforce IRC 2018, IBC 2018, IEBC 2018, IECC, IEIC, ABC, Z. They'll have a list of things, but it'll actually use the word enforced on their website. Usually the Department of Community Affairs or the building department, or just going onto their main code documents. If you can access those online, you'll be able to find the word enforcement used. But what does the insurance company say to us every single time? They say, well, we need a letter from a building official saying that they're enforcing that. They don't need that. The state or the county or the city already put in writing everything in this entire list that's enforced. Those books are this thick. You realize how much work it would take a building official to come back and say, preemptively, we're going to enforce all of these things for this one single project. You have to do these things. Imagine if they did that and they left something off of that list for that single project. Guess what would happen? They could no longer enforce it. And now whoever is purchasing that building is going to be stuck with whatever the problem is. Whoever is living in that building and the repairs are being made, they're stuck with that problem. It's a minimum building code. They have written this book as a letter to every contractor, homeowner, property owner saying this is what is required for your project, so that they don't have to write it over and over and over again. So why does the insurance company say they need something specific in writing from the building official when they don't? You can provide them an excerpt from this giant book, and you can say this is what it says is required. And here's the website that says it's enforced. I don't need the building official to tell me up front. If I build something right now and I don't do it right, even if the building official didn't tell me up front that it was required, if I'm building in that county, I'm supposed to know that county's code. If the building official didn't tell me it was required and I don't install drip edge, does that mean that I don't have to install drip edge? In reality, someone could call the building official 5 years from now, find out who built that roof, and I could still get fined a misdemeanor and up to $1,000 a day in some jurisdictions for not having had that drip edge installed. Because I'm doing work as a contractor, I have to know the codes. I'm supposed to abide by them. That's my responsibility, not the building officials. So is that enforced? Yes. There's a looming threat of punishment. It's enforced. The looming threat of punishment is all that's necessary. So the next time an insurance adjuster tells you that that isn't enforced, unless you get a building official that puts in writing that they don't enforce something, if the local jurisdiction has adopted a certain code and it's required by that code, it's enforced. Period. There's no reason to have that duplicate information from the adjuster. The only reason they would do that is to delay the claim, force you to jump more hurdles to see if they can get away with it and pay out less. It's bull. You need a PA involved in these things. Having a public adjuster involved can avoid a lot of these conflicts. We can establish what documentation is actually necessary to send them and which arguments to have so that we don't have to jump 50 hurdles just to get to a decent settlement that will allow you to put things back together properly. Get us involved early, before the claim is filed preferably, but as early as you possibly can. Let us deal with that bull.